Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
Getting a little ready.
Who knew we had this much talent?
All right, Ken, you got to give us a break here for a second. Let me get things started. Welcome to West Point, Mississippi. Or we could be in Australia with all that noise going on.
That's right.
So this is a pretty special one, Lanny. We've got a couple of folks that have, we got a guy from Australia.
Yeah.
Let me introduce him first. We got Carl Goodhand, all the way from Australia.
G'day, how you going, guys?
All right.
Straight out of Darwin.
Wow.
Yeah, g'day, mate.
Straight out of the Northern Territory in Darwin, so that's a long way here, about 8,000 miles, I believe.
He's a professional hunter over there, Lanny.
That's amazing.
We're going to get to talk about hunting in Africa.
And then we got a guy from Tibby.
Right down the road.
Yeah.
Ken Ivey,
Downtown
who's
Tibby.
playing this, what is that thing?
It's a didgeridoo. This is Carl could probably talk a lot better than I can, but this is the Aboriginal native instrument for Australia's First Peoples. Yeah.
Why have you got one?
Well, I in the mid '90s, I picked up a guy that was hitchhiking, and he had one, and I did not have like the internet, and I did not have any way to kind of look this up and figure it out. So I started after he told me what it was. I literally looked it up in an encyclopedia and started making them out of bamboo myself, and then self-taught myself how to play. And then, believe it or not, there are other people, around that understand what this is. So one of my buddies was going to Australia. He was actually the best man in my wedding back in 2001, and I asked him to bring me home a didgeridoo, and he said sure, and he carried this thing on the plane for the 18-mile trip, and
there it is.
got me a
18-hour trip, yeah.
18-hour trip, yeah.
Well, Carl, does he sound?
Yeah, what would you give him, a 1 to 10?
Well, we're in Missouri, remember, so he gets an extra couple of stars, so he's got to get 6 out of 10.
Yeah, it's Missouri, Mississippi.
Oh, sorry.
Africa,
We're
Australia.
in Mississippi, Carl.
It's been a long way to get here. So
Yeah, it has.
it all blends in.
I didn't expect to see a didgeridoo in Mississippi, but I'm not that surprised either.
Yeah, and Ken is in licensing for us, so if you need anything camouflaged, give Ken a call.
Yeah, or
Bottomland didgeridoo?
I bet
Oh,
your,
that's a great idea,
I
Zach.
bet your
You
wife
hear that?
loves you to play that at night. doesn't
Well,
she?
I mean, she's gotten used to me in 25 years.
Yeah.
She's domesticated me somewhat. So none of this surprises her at all.
Do you know what that is, Ken?
Yes, this is the a toothpick.
A toothpick. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that is a. We're going to let Carl check that out in a little while. So, Carl, look, this is be patient with us. And sitting besides Carl, we've got Zach Phillips, who's a star on the Outdoor Channel. He's married to a star for certain.
Yeah, I married in Australia, and now I can't get away from them. So,
Surrounded by.
yeah, and we live in West Point now. And Carl was visiting us, so I texted Bobby and said, "This might be an interesting podcast."
Yeah,
for you.
no
So,
doubt about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm just here to be the interpreter, though. So, if you hear any weird words, I probably know them.
You can tell them what we're saying because I know. Yeah.
Well, guys, we always start these things off. Mac, have you got any blood on the biologic?
No, I do not.
Lanny, I bet you don't. Yeah, I bet you didn't even think about it before you
Yeah,
walked in
well,
here.
we were making sausage this weekend and swimming, so we kind of shut the deer season down.
Yeah. Well, Mike, what about your last duck hunt? Y'all killed some ducks.
Yeah, we did. It was pretty rainy, but we had a good afternoon shoot and a good morning shoot. It was fun.
A little blood on the guide's choice,
That's
if,
pretty good.
if you will.
Which is biologic. So
It is. Well, I've got two. There's my nephew, Robbie Spagner, killed a great big old 8-point.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, a really nice one.
Bringing it in the late season.
And then this young man named Eli Dunn killed his 7 years old, killed his first deer sitting with his mother. And so it was a great little picture of him, but that had to be a great little family hunt.
Oh, no
Sitting
doubt
with
about it.
Mom, kill him. So congrats to Eli. And that'll do it for the blood on the biologic. But
I got one.
You're not
I'm
going to let
sorry- I'm
Ken?
sorry, Ken, I didn't
Ken,
mean
you're going to have
to-
to, if you're going to be on
Yeah,
Blood and Blood, you
this
got to
is a
get closer
radio
to
program.
the
You
mic.
got to get a little closer.
There you
Can
go.
I talk about my daughter for just 1 second?
Oh, that is what I want. I forgot.
Day Ivy, I'm gonna give a shout out today because she has been horn hunting and she's been horn hunting bucks pretty hard all year. She's passed a lot of deer, and last Wednesday, she said, "Well, Dad, season's about to be out. We need something to eat." And I said, "Well, whatever you want to do." So she shot a deer Wednesday after work, and then she shot another one Thursday after work. So I got to track and skin and do all that stuff.
That's all. How old is she?
15. She'll soon be 16. She's getting a car for her 16th birthday.
How
So
about
Does
that?
she know that? That she's getting
she
a car?
does
Okay,
definitely
good.
know. Yeah, she helped pay. She helped pay for it.
All right.
Yeah. Carl, don't fall asleep now. I promise we're a lot more exciting than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I got one little thing. Lanny,
Yes,
I
Bobby.
bet you didn't bring a current event either, did you? So I got you covered.
Well, good.
I saw something on the internet. I thought this was interesting.
Was it on the internet?
It was on the internet. 1943, Michigan, when they would put out a new hunting license, they would give the stats of what happened last year. And so they would say how many deer were killed, but they would also list how many hunters were killed or wounded.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
In
so-
43?
In 1943, Carl.
What state is this?
So Michigan.
Hey, look, that's a bunch of people going hunting in Michigan now.
It's another state with an M, Carl.
Yeah,
I don't want to
right.
confuse you now. So, but
M.I.
Trying to take it all in.
so they killed 65,087 deer, and 60 hunters were either killed or wounded.
Oh, my
And they give
goodness.
that as a stat. And then they come down and list the small game season, and they list how many pheasants and rough grouse, cottontails, and all that were killed. It's millions. And then they list how many hunters were killed or wounded.
And how many were killed?
102.
Bird hunting.
Yeah. And it says this is a game hunting license.
Well, I
So-
mean,
so-
it's a great way to promote safety. I mean, when you're, looking at your stuff. So,
It was a war we won.
yeah.
It's just amazing where we were and where we've
Well, it's
come.
interesting. If the stat used to be, we used to talk about this all the time. I can't remember if it was Michigan or Pennsylvania. It was one of those states which has, license sales. I think only seconds to maybe Texas these days. But it was the largest standing army in the world on the opening day of deer season. So it's kind of interesting. It's a whole lot of people hunting out there, and some of those states require full orange.
Yeah. Well, and I suspect this was before orange, so orange probably had a
I might have got the
But,
orange pushed through right
yeah,
there.
probably had a big help on it because you can see somebody when they're in orange. That's for sure.
Hope so.
Ken, you ever shot anybody?
No, not yet. I have not.
I have.
I've never had to.
Yeah.
All right, so
What
let's.
about you, Carl?
Yeah, so I mean, technically, my uncle thing it would have been,
Yeah,
he
you'd have been
killed
a
15
stat.
doves when he got shot once.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna. That's one thing makes me nervous being on a dove shoot with you. I know that happened.
Well, it was a good
So
lesson.
you've
that's
got
for
the
sure.
potential.
Yeah.
All right, so let's steer this back around. Mac, I'm going to look at you for some interesting questions now. But so Carl, you're from Australia and you're a professional hunter. You're taking hunters down there hunting.
Yep. And most of our client base comes from the US. So we come to the US every year to do a marketing tour. We hit Nashville, Dallas, which is Atlanta now, Reno, Nevada, all the
The
big,
SCI show?
yeah, all
Mhm.
the big hunting expositions, and then pick up our clients there, book the season up, come back, hunt. These guys they're hunting all over the world, so they're booking 2, 3, 4 years out. So it's quite a process from booking the hunt at the shows, and then going through all the licensing, everything, and then coming down and actually executing the hunt, and then all of a sudden it's a memory again.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's quite a process.
What's y'all's most popular animal to hunt down?
Look, buffalo overall are probably the most known species that everybody
Water
wants to
buffalo?
hunt. Yeah, water buffalo.
Water buffalo.
So
Not them big fuzzy cold ones, Bobby.
yeah. Well, you've got a version of them here, but they're a river and buffalo. But we got the South Asiatic swamp buffalo, which got the big wide horns, which you would have seen, in any pictures and that of Australia. So that's what it's synonymous for, the big wide sweeping bulls.
Are they real aggressive? Are dangerous? Or?
Look, they seem less aggressive than the African buffalo, but it's simply because they live in open areas. Their eyes are really sharp, their hearing sharp, and you won't get inside that danger zone before they know you're there. And there's no predation. So in Africa, those animals are pushed and pushed by lions, by people, by poachers, by everything all day. You're hunting them in a thick jess. You might come around a corner and there the bull is. So you have a lot closer interaction first time you see the animal, and it picks up a much, a fiercer reputation, whereas our guys, you'll typically see them from a long way out and then you'll make your move. But they can be very dangerous. Don't get me wrong. I carry a 500 Nitro Express double rifle side by side.
That's a big one.
Shoots a 570 grain pill at 2,400 feet per second, and that's what we use to stop them. And the funny thing is, I've killed more with the second barrel than the first barrel coming at us.
Wow.
They're pretty intimidating, and I felt a whole lot better having him over my shoulder with the 500. So
Yeah.
big animals, not very friendly.
Where do you advise the hunter to put that first bullet?
It all depends on the situation. Every situation's different. I'll be right there with the hunter. They'll be up on the sticks, best case scenario. And we'll be looking at the animal. If the animal has no idea we're there, it'll be a double lung or heart lung shot. If the animal knows we're there, probably a frontal sort of jugular notch shot. These animals got a big white blaze on them, so that there's not protected by any bone. And if you get good penetration, the animal will die a lot quicker than anywhere else. So it depends on the situation. And in other situations, put it right in the brain if it's life or death. So
Yeah, got to do what you got to do.
that's it.
The buffalo eat good?
They do, but like we hunt the big old bulls. You know what I mean? You go and you buy beef. It's the grain. You don't go and buy a 15, 16-year-old bull to eat for dinner. You know what I mean? It's, But they eat okay. We export thousands and thousands a year out to Asia live on a boat, which they use like a feedlot. And they're 450, but they're a middle-aged bull. They're probably 4 to 8 years old, and they're about 450 kilos is what the normal bull that goes out is.
And when I think about Australia, I really don't think about hunting. Do you, Lane?
No, I really didn't until I got to research and found out you were coming and looking this morning. It's really interesting, the different territories and the different species, and then just the, unique animals that Australia holds all the way around. I can imagine, cruising around no matter where you are, seeing, these different animals that are unique to Australia would really be cool.
Well, there's a bunch of kangaroos and unique, like you're saying, unique
Yeah.
animals, marsupials and all that,
Yeah.
but
Have you-
typically they don't allow hunting on them.
Yeah. Have you ever boxed a kangaroo? We've seen this on the internet.
Oh, usually every Tuesday.
Bobby, we need you
Punch him
to
in the
box
face.
a kangaroo.
Everybody
Punch
hears
him.
Lanny laugh. Let me just tell you. He loves to laugh. But nothing makes him laugh longer and harder than if you show him a video of a kangaroo punching somebody.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, they look pretty good.
It was a thing a while ago. Like
Yeah.
they'll lean back and they'll disembowel you. I remember as a kid, seeing a photo of a guy on the front page of the newspaper, and he's holding his jeans here, and his groin was completely ripped out, and the jeans were blood soaked down past the
no.
knees.
Oh no!
And that was a real incident.
Well, Bobby, if you get a
So
chance, you
this
need to wear
isn't
a
any-
cup.
Laney, you should subscribe to the Darwin newspaper just for
Yeah.
entertainment purposes.
Yeah, I
You'd see some
should.
good stuff.
It's almost a tabloid, right?
Yeah.
It's,
So if you look at Australia, Carl's up in the Northern Territory at the top, as far
Mm-hmm.
as you can go up on the right side, and it's the Wild West up there.
In the
Well, kind
middle.
of in the middle, yeah. And it's
It's all the
definitely
same.
Darwin, and then from Darwin you go out into Arnhem Land, and that's where he's doing most of his hunting. So it's millions and millions of acres untouched out there.
So what else are y'all hunting? Buffalo?
Buffalo bantang, which is a wild type of cattle that's
Yeah.
like they don't domesticate very well. You put them in a yard and they'll get catromyopathy, where they'll just lay down and die. They do crossbreed them a little bit, but you can't domesticate them. So there's a bunch of cattle. I think there's four species: bantang, saladang, Gower, and there's another one that's sort of in between them all. And they all look very similar. They got the white rump, white legs, and they got like a velvet skin on them. And like in a photo, they'll look like a bull, but in real life, they're a majestic animal. They're really beautiful. We got a lot of those up there. Then they hunt an old species of cattle that went wild, that's sort of not suited to the territory, that has evaded capture for many, many years, and they're pretty rogue. And then we got wild boar, obviously, same as here. There's a couple of different deer species depending on where you go, and then there's you can't hunt the dingo in the Northern Territory, but you can hunt a wild dog, and they're saying that about 98% have hybridized with domesticated
dogs.
dogs. And but they're a menace up there. I mean, they're like coyotes down here. We had on one of the property we hunt. They got 30,000 head of cattle, and they lost 3,000 calves one year just to dingoes.
3,000.
3,000. Yeah, it's about.
Goodness gracious.
It's just because they're farming such a large area, and you need that many acres because the land's not as good as some of the better land, and the dingoes sort of wreak havoc on them.
So most of the animals that you just mentioned, they're not native to Australia, are they?
No, that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even the dingo was brought in. It's believed to be brought in 5,000 years ago by the Aboriginal people, and they think that was the first introduced species. In the painting, in all the rock art, which they say is 40,000 years old, you see the thylacine, or the Tasmanian tiger, which is a species endemic to Australia, and it looks like a kangaroo crossed with a wolf, and it's got stripes down its back. And you see them in paintings in Aboriginal art sites, but they haven't been known to live on the mainland since the introduction of the dingo. So, even back then, introducing new species was wreaking havoc on the natives. So,
I thought it would be interesting for you, just in terms of conservation, what we are used to. We have native species that we value and we conserve. What they have is all invasive species, so it's a whole different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And also the culture of the hunter there is much different than what we have here.
Absolutely. And you see a lot of people, they're getting a bit of traction on the internet and all that, and they're copying your model of, we take the meat, we do this, we do that.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that they're doing it for TV, and it's not actually true. I mean, you imagine moving 2,000 pounds of beef out of a swamp in tropical conditions. The meat's got green flies and that while you're doing it. So the animals themselves, where we are, the buffalo will walk through a cattle fence and destroy it. And, most of the properties eradicate the buffalo simply for that fact. The other thing is they can carry tuberculosis and brucellosis. And in the 90s, the government had a deal with the FDA, and they tried to wipe out the entire buffalo herd. They spent a bunch of money on it because they were talking about exporting live cattle to the US, and all that sort of fell through in the end. But they used that as a precursor to wipe out the buffalo. And they had a good shot at it, but they left one pocket of them up in Eastern Arnhem, and since then they've repopulated the whole thing. So they wiped out millions and millions of animals, and they just shot them and let them lay. And it was a big controversy back then.
So, can an Australian hunter, do you keep your guns at your house? You can ride down the road with them?
The thing is, we get a lot of negative press, just like you guys get a lot of negative press about other things, you know what I mean? But the truth is, as a hunter where we are, we can have basically any bolt action rifle we want up to 50 cal. And then, we're not allowed to have too much ammunition, but we can have ammunition and all that. But the other thing is we can't use it for self-defense or anything like that. We have to have a genuine use for the firearm. So you have to have an area where you can hunt that's documented, and you can do that on government land. The government allocates land where we are, but state to state it's different. WA is a total write-off. They are mega anti-gun. Queensland's a little bit more open to the fact. New South Wales is regional. New South Wales completely different to city New South Wales, like Sydney and that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're okay. Victoria's a little different, but we got gun crime on the rise in Australia, and that's the thing. And the gun crime's all done with handguns and stuff like that. So they're still coming in, but they're fetching $15,000 to $20,000 for a handgun in the black market. So
wow,
so it's a funny thing. But you guys can bring your rifles in, and it's no problem. Like if you're going with an operator, the problem would be traveling state to state because each state's got different laws. But if you come in, hunt with us, we'll get you a license for your firearm as long as it's not semi-automatic. You come in, you present it, you'll have a license just like I would as an international visitor, show it at the airport, get past, jump on a domestic plane, fly up to us, and then on the way out, you do an export permit, and it's all good. It's no different to hunting anywhere else in the world.
We had a young lady on here maybe a year ago that had been duck hunting in Australia.
I think she was in that New South Wales kind of area.
She encountered some anti-hunters.
Absolutely. New South Wales and Victoria, because they're like big city hubs, it's like sort of New York, but there is regional areas. There's a big population of the anti-hunters and people like that, and they think it's a good idea to go out and interrupt law-abiding citizens doing, exactly what they should be, and but that has sort of died off. I haven't seen a lot of that in the last few years, as much as I used to. But you think Australia being an agriculturally based country, that firearms would be a lot more accessible. But I think what they're trying to do, because they want to wipe out the deer in most states and all that sort of thing, they banned bow hunting in South Australia. But you're seeing native animals walking around with arrows in it. There was no intervention from the bow hunting community, and that's where they really let themselves down. They'll like whinge and cry about not being able to bow hunt, but they didn't do any enforcement on these idiots that were doing that.
Right.
So that's the biggest problem you've got, is you can go and buy a bow without a license, and then you can stick an arrow through a native species and it doesn't kill them with a field tip because they've got no idea what they're doing. And that's bad for everybody in the community.
Yeah, it gives everybody a black eye. So is Mustard hunting in the Northern Territory?
Yeah, I live in the Northern Territory. I live up in Darwin, and Darwin's famous because it was bombed 58 times during the World War II by the Japanese.
Ooh.
And then we were wiped out by a cyclone in 74. So there's a pretty colourful history to Darwin.
Y'all some tough ones, sounds like.
Yeah, well, it's the outback. So
The outback.
There's actually, I guess, they're ducks and geese. There are native, and there's a lot of them. But what I picked up on pretty quick is they also have a lot of really big crocs, and I don't really want to be going in the
Oh, Lord.
you know,
Waiters on.
yeah, no waiters, no dogs running in, because the crocs, I don't know what it is about a dog, but they're attracted. Whether it's a nervous energy, whether it's just splashing, but a croc will come in on a dog like you wouldn't believe, even if it's in your boat. So
Oh, man.
it picks it up, yeah. They're really aggressive. It's not like an alligator. You can't play with a 15, 16-foot crocodile.
No. So going back to what you were saying about their model for conservation, it sounds like they're more focused on, and y'all help correct me if I'm wrong, elimination of the invasive species.
That's correct. That's the only thing that they monitor. In Victoria, they monitor one deer species, and there's a season. And I think in Tasmania, there's a season on some fallow deer and stuff in there. But that's the exception to the rule. But yeah, they don't want deer species in there, because if they take away these animals, there's no reason for me and you to have a rifle. So you do that, you take away the reason for having a rifle, you take away the guns next.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
there.
well, it sounds a little bit like a conspiracy theory, but I can see it happening. You know what I mean? But why are they wiping our deer? Why are they dropping 1080? Why are they saying that's more humane than a hunter going into the bush, harvesting a deer ethically, and taking home and eating it?
Well, and what's a 1080, dropping 1080?
1080 is like a poison, and it's a real nasty. It's outlawed here in the US.
They're poison and stuff.
Kill 5-10 times over. You know what I mean? So that means it'll kill the animal that eats the animal, kill that animal that eats that animal. 10 times over it can kill. So it's nasty.
The Bangtang cattle, they're putting that to them?
No, just the deer. The deer, they hate the deer for some reason down south. I think, we're relatively remote. The NT's like Wyoming.
Who is we? Who is they? They hate the deer. Who's they?
Well, all the anti-hunters and
they hate the deer.
They hate the deer.
You'd say on like a government level, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like we call them lefties. I think you do the same here. But those guys, the people that are out there protesting against the ducks, they're also protesting to kill the deer. They want to end hunting, and they think it's barbaric and all that sort of nonsense without understanding.
That's crazy too, because Australia is like this
Wilderness.
rough and wildernessy, kind of place that,
it's a little bit of a cautionary tale to us. And what we have
100%.
going on, right?
I agree.
Yeah, they do it, and they did it in New Zealand during COVID. They went out and they wiped out the tar. They got in helicopters and they chopper shot the tar because they were non-natives, saying that they were destroying the highland grasses and all that. But the reality is, they wiped the tar out and there's no difference,
Right.
And they were doing that because it reduces the need for, to have a weapon. And it's a huge industry in New Zealand. How many people go to New Zealand to hunt? It's like one of the biggest tourism industries there in New Zealand.
And you're basically hunting all invasives.
Absolutely. So
Interesting.
Red stag in New Zealand is a big deal.
Yeah, and sandbar. Don't they have sandbar deer?
Sandbar deer in Victoria, and they're the deer they're chopper shooting. And,
no.
Yeah. So,
and it's one of those things where the deer, they're there. It's going to be very hard to get rid of them. So on a government level, the choice is we foster a responsible, ethical hunting culture, or we eradicate them. And they're going more towards the eradication. And you tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like at some point they could have or could still foster a good hunting culture that we have and put a value on the deer.
Absolutely. Up where we are, it's a little bit more, it's like living in Wyoming. You know what I mean? There's no one around. We hunt on 3 million acres of property. There wouldn't be more than 10 people on there. there's more cattle than people.
Some room up there.
There's 3 times more crocodiles than there are people in the territory.
Uh-oh.
So
Yeah, therefore don't get in the water.
yeah, I'd swim anywhere, anywhere, and I'll reiterate that anywhere.
Yeah, but when I was there, he has we'd call it a pond right by his camp. And after 4 days of being in 100-degree weather, it was starting to look pretty good. And Captain, the Aboriginal guy that was with us, he said, there's no crocs. You can feel it in your heart. It's safe. So
Wow.
he talked me into getting into it. So I got in it, washed off, got out. And the whole time I noticed Carl never got in. And when I went back the following year, there was a croc laying out in the middle of it. And I said, man, why did you let me swim in there? He
Yeah.
said, well,
He
I
can
don't really
feel it.
care about you that much.
Yeah, I didn't like it that much then. Yeah.
So we're all familiar with the Seinfeld episode where about the dingo that ate your baby. And that line was spawned from the news where a lady claimed she lost her baby because the dingo ate it. But it ended up proving true that a dingo did grab her baby, right?
Well, she was exonerated after she spent a lot of time in jail. So there was 2 schools of thought on it. I was pretty young, and then I watched probably most of my education on that came from the miniseries that was on TV. So I'm probably not the best person to talk about the specifics, but
You'd be better than Bobby. Yeah.
yeah. But that's
It really
happened.
something happened. Yeah.
So they were camping at Ayers Rock, which is that big rock in the center of Australia, and they were away from the tent drinking, and someone said there was a dingo, and then the baby Azaria was missing, and then they never found her, and then they found blood in the car and this and that. And there was a whole different, and then anyway, she got convicted initially, and then she was exonerated a number of years later.
There's a couple stories here like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, do you know Olivia Newton-John?
Oh, yeah, she lives 2 houses down from me.
Are we going to start with the corny Australia
Well,
questions?
she's the most famous thing I knew about Australia.
Yeah, no, she down in Sydney. Australia's actually a big place. Put a map of
Yeah.
Australia over the US,
Yeah.
and it's the same size.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
right?
But we've got 1/10 the people.
When we found out that you were coming, I started just doing some wildlife research.
Yep.
Me
So
too.
what is this the war on the emus? Like the military? I mean, military was trying to kill emus.
I believe it was on a airfield base, right? And they had to wipe them out because they were running in front of planes and stuff like that.
Emus
So-
are native, aren't they?
Emus are, yeah. They're a funny looking bird. Like we don't have a lot where I am, but every now and then you'll see run through the
Yeah.
bush. And I think when you're hunting and you're in the bush all the time, you get used to the shapes and the movements
Oh, yeah.
of animals, and that's how you pick an animal up. But then you see this big tall bird, looks like an ostrich, bobbing along through the bush. It's like, what the hell
What is
you know what I
that?
mean? And then
Yeah.
you see it out of the corner of your eye, and you're like, oh, it's an emu,
Well, we had one right down the street here for a couple of years.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah.
Bobby
Well,
had one on his place.
Yeah.
there was a big scam where they sold a bunch of emu eggs over here, right?
Oh yeah, no, there's still
$18 an egg.
you can go and down in around Sumter County, Alabama. There's a emu fence, where they had built an emu farm, but no longer. They're not longer there anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
it's big for the oil. You get a lot of emu oil out of emu.
They do.
Oh, emu.
The meat out of them is really red, and there is a market for them. For some of the ones for emu meat because it's quite lean and
Mhm.
good for you. Obviously, it's a wild.
You ever seen a platypus?
Not for a long time.
Like
I saw one at the
a
zoo.
beaver with a bill?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
across
Yeah. And barramundi?
barramundi we catch. There's a lot of barramundi where we are, so
Yeah.
it's probably the mecca, and it's probably the number one fishing species.
Isn't a platypus bite poisonous?
It's got a toxic hook on its back foot that it can eject. It's only marsupial that's actually got a toxin or a poison on it.
Yeah. Don't mess with the
How about
platypus.
So if I came and hunted down there, which is a maybe.
Yeah,
Is a-
if you have turkeys. Yeah.
But are you hunting kind of like that old African style out of camps and traveling around?
We're based. I mean, depending on the areas you go and the species that you hunt, we move between the areas. Sometimes with light aircraft, or it's quite a long drive, like six to 8 hours. It's an hour and a half from the front gate to one of the places to the camp, from the front gate. So that's on 3 million acres. So you can drive for 6 hours in one direction, still be on the property.
Golly,
So-
that's a big
Wow.
place.
They
It
use
is.
helicopters like we use four-wheelers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could take you an hour in a helicopter, take you 5 hours in a vehicle.
If I
So,
drove 6 hours, I'd be on the other side of Atlanta.
yeah,
So if you when I was following Zach when some of the posts he was making, and there was this guy you referred to him as Captain. He was in. I don't want to Aboriginal. Is that?
Yep.
So, do you encounter people?
You won't encounter, like, some days we go 6-7 days without seeing anybody. But nowadays, most of the Aboriginals live in communities out on Arnhem Land, but they live in the community. And, Sunday's a day for hunting for those guys. So Sunday, they'll all pile in a vehicle and they will get out and about, and they'll just turn up, in the middle of nowhere, and they'll be catching turtles and, spearing fish and all sorts of stuff like that. But it's not something that you commonly have. The town's drawn them in the lure of, running water, food that's easy to get from the shop. Is a lot easier to sustain a living in town,
So are there many still living out in the bush?
I think there's about 15,000 in Arnhem Land still. There's 2,000 one town, 3,000, 2,000, and that's considered bush. I mean, that's a town of 2,000 people, and are surrounded by outback and it gets cut off during the wet season, so the only way in and out's with the plane. So it's surrounded by floodplains and water and mountains and all that sort of stuff. Well, not hills.
They're not that dissimilar from our Native Americans, but culturally they're pretty fascinating people. I mean, even the dialect. How many dialects did you say was within?
Well, Arnhem Land itself is 66,000 square kilometres, and that's probably 20 odd thousand square miles. I believe there's 6,000 different dialects that can't communicate with each other. And just in a small region, say 150 miles apart, I'll give you an example of 3 languages that I know about in that area. So there's Iwaja, which is in Coburg. There's Gunawinga, which is a regional language which is spoken in Ompelli. And then there's Miri, which is just up near Maningrida. So topographically, they're less than 100 miles apart if you flew from one to the other. Obviously, it'd take a little bit longer to drive. But the word for crocodile, saltwater crocodile, in Iwaja is midnight, like it sounds. Okay, so the word in Gunawingu is Namanwadi. And then the word in Miri is Ginga. So there's no similarity at all. At all.
But you need to know the word for crocodile wherever you go.
Right. That's a good one to know.
Yeah.
Well, you just look at the water. You got to assume one's there.
Oh, yeah. How do you tell if there's a crocodile there if you stick your finger in and it gets wet?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, they said that, he said they feel it in their heart that it's safe. And I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, they're not that scared. But if one of them gets killed by a crocodile, they say, oh, the croc was feeling cheeky that day.
It's a true story.
So I guess I'm thinking that there's still these bush people out that are.
They are. There's some very good bush people, but obviously the culture's lost each generation.
Yeah.
There's more and more dependence on living in town. The access to grog, like alcohol and marijuana, and that it's getting worse, and it affects them more than it affects other people because they just sort of overdo it.
Yeah. Are they the best hunters or trackers?
Mate, they've got the best eyes. So one of my mates who's passed away now, unfortunately, but he was the best bushman I've ever seen anywhere. And I've hunted all over Africa. I've hunted all over the world. And this guy was so in tune with his environment. He grew up there. He could listen to the birds and tell you what's out in front of you. He could look at an animal miles away across a field, a plain, and then go in behind the trees, drive for like 30 minutes, walk through 2 miles of like swampy trees, and come out, the animal will be directly in front of you. And sometimes I second guessed him, and he sort of played with me, and man, it was incredible. That guy could listen to the brolgas and tell me, there's a buffalo over here, there's a herd of buffalo over here, and like it was. I was on a floodplain one night, and it was black, and we got the headlights of the side by side, and we're just driving along, and it's all exactly the same. It's just grass. There's no difference in the grass height. There's nothing like that. And like I kept bending because I don't know, like there was no moon, there was no nothing. That I kept sort of bending. He's like, go straight. I was like, I thought I was going straight. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, after like 40 minutes of driving through the bush, my wheels were on a track. Like that's how precise they were. And he was incredible. And I've worked with some others. Captain's quite good, but he's 56 years old now, so it's sort of he's slowing down a little bit. But the incredible bush people. They can look at something and know that they've got all these indicative species. So they'll look at a tree or a flower and they know, oh look, we'll dig here, and they'll produce a root. It's incredible the knowledge that they have.
They're pretty connected to the land.
Yeah, knowledge of the land.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things, they have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Well, so that makes me want to ask the question. So when you've got someone like the guys that you just described, and you've got a big oil tycoon from Texas down there wanting to shoot a big bull, and y'all see a cow, a big delicious cow, and you pass it to go after a big bull, do they understand the concept of we're out after a large?
Absolutely. That thought process has obviously evolved because it it's a source of revenue. Being if we hunt on their land, we pay them a fee per animal per day, per that. And we've got a contract that goes through the land council, and their thinking's evolved. They're all about the hunt too. You know what I mean? It's about them, setting out and achieving the goal that they set, which is shooting an animal of this quality and stuff like that. So
Captain, when we were with him, when me and Mary hunting, we killed a big mature bull, and it was almost like a spiritual thing for Captain. He was very respectful of the whole process, and he appreciated that it was an old mature bull that needed to be taken out of the herd.
Yeah.
And he spoke with me that night sitting by the fire, and he just, what they talk about, like our God, they talk about their old people. So they have a different set of religion, but he was saying when we got to camp, nothing went wrong. We didn't have any flat tires. Nothing went bad, basically. And he said, I talked to the old people, and I asked for a big mature bull. And he said, they provided. And he said, just because nothing went wrong, I know that you're welcome here, and you're my brother. So the way that he approaches hunting is very more similar to how we do, honestly.
Yeah.
and it's permission. There's superstitions too that we don't.
I
do.
bet so.
We don't talk.
We got some superstitions.
We don't talk about where we're going the next day, and everybody wants to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're sitting around thinking, so what are we doing tomorrow? I said, we're going hunting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I respect that
Oh,
tradition.
that's why it happens during turkey season for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they think it's bad luck to make a plan for hunting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that.
But then they'll get rattled by something too that you won't think anything of. You know what I mean? The wind will blow a door shut, and then they'll sleep with the lights on all night. You know what I mean? It'll be things like that. And then they have to smoke it. So they have to smoke the bad, or if they have a bad dream, man, they'll smoke the whole camp out, and they'll take green leaves, heat it up in the fire, and it'll be pouring smoke out, and they'll run it all around the
Run the
edges,
haints out.
Yeah.
all around every building.
One thing I appreciated
like
about
sage.
him is every time we'd go to a new area, when we were leaving, I'd look over and Captain would be lighting a fire. And he'd set it on fire. And one time I remember being like, maybe we should start the truck before we set the woods on fire. But they've been prescribed burning for years and years and years.
Yeah, they know the value of it.
And in fact, they've changed the topography of the country. I mean, where we live, it's like an open wooded savanna, but you've got deep rainforest trees like the Liverstonia palms and stuff like that, and it's all scattered through an area it shouldn't be. And what it's been is there's been 40,000 years of those guys burning and opening the country up, and it's actually changed the topography of the whole country.
For the better, I'm sure.
Well, it opens it up. It's easier for hunting and that, but there was a lot more rainforest around back then, I guess.
So if you had a couple of flat tires or something like that go wrong going to the hunt, it would bother them.
Oh, absolutely. If something bad happened on the way to the hunting area,
He'd want to go home.
There'd be a reason for it.
That's kind of opposite. When something bad goes, we're like, oh, we got to go. You know?
Kind of like we're forcing it now. Maybe we should think about this. Yeah.
Are you, Bobby? Are you superstitious?
I'm just a little stitious.
You're just a little stitious. That's what I was thinking.
I feel like turkey hunters have some superstitions. A little different.
Yeah, the whole hunting culture does. I mean, even if you don't express it,
I think
that
you
much.
have to, right?
Yeah, I mean, things work for you, and you kind of do the things that work for you again.
You ever seen an Aboriginal person hunting with an atlatl or spear with the?
I got some great video of my friend that I was talking about. I can't say his name for cultural reasons.
Oh no,
because he's passed away. We can't speak his name, so that's why.
But he threw atlatls.
Yeah, I've got. He threw off a woomera, so he put the spear, and then I got a video of him hunting a pig like that. It's pretty cool.
Was he talking about a boomerang?
No, a spear.
No,
Boomerangs are for birds, and they don't come back. So boomerangs, the new modern boomerang comes back. The old boomerang was a throwing stick, and it's sort of shaped like a heart, like a 2/3 of a boomerang, and they'd throw it into a flock of geese, and it'd break a couple of necks.
And
that's how that worked.
but
So
it didn't come back.
It did not. prone to damage if stuff comes back flying
Yeah,
at
that's
you.
kind
You
of
know
what I
what I
was
mean?
thinking.
But they make big long spears, and they'll go out and spear young crocodiles and barramundi and fish like that.
Right.
Fish and turtles. I mean, obviously they're not confined by the restrictions that we
Right.
are.
Goanna.
Goanna, absolutely. They love them, and wallaby, the gun, and the turtles, the green sea turtles, and they're beautiful. You know, it breaks my heart, but it's part of the culture. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
They'll spear them, and they'll pull them in. They'll hunt them, and the dugongs, you know, the manatees, they hunt them, and they'll spear and pull them in. And it's like a delicacy over there, and I mean, it don't look like good eating to me, and it smells pretty often. I remember the first time I was up there in Coburg, they made me eat the liver because it was the ceremonial thing to do, and I had nothing left to drink. There was like hot water. There was one hot can of Sprite, and it was a 6-hour drive back to civilization, and hot Sprite behind warm turtle liver. It repeated on me every 5 minutes for the entire 6-hour drive, and that put me off turtle for good.
I bet so.
When we wound up there with Carl, it was one of the cooler experiences of my life with hunting. And it was pretty evident early on that Carl grew up in that culture, in that community. He speaks a lot of their language, and they trust him. And that was a big thing, is trust.
Yeah.
So to have that experience and to go onto that country and be welcomed, you have to be with a Carl. Like
Yeah.
me and you just can't show up. And,
No.
Hey, guys, can
Yeah.
we go hunt a buffalo?
Y'all mind if I run back there?
Yeah.
Yes,
so
we
it's,
do.
And just respecting their culture and understanding it. And it's extremely complex. Even their family structure is different than ours.
Yeah, some of the stuff you were sharing with us out in the lobby before is like, it's mind blowing. So yeah, you would be completely lost over there without somebody like Carl.
Well, tell us some of these things.
Well, so David Attenborough came to Australia in '76, I believe, and he documented the didgeridoo and all that sort of thing. And the family structure is so much different to anything anywhere in the world. So when you're born into a true Aboriginal family in the north, obviously traditions are different everywhere you go. But where we are, if you're born, you can take one of 4 names, and that 4 names would be like your mother's maiden name, your father's name, your wife's mother's name, and et cetera, you know. And the name that you take, and it's usually the first son takes the father's name and the father's lineage. Everyone else is up for debate, you know what I mean? And that name that you take is what gives you access to the different country, and it gives you different rights on that country. So some people will be able to visit the country and forage there. Some people will be able to take the royalties, which is what we pay for the animals and stuff from that area, or the mining or whatever goes on there. And some of them won't even be allowed to go to the country. And this will be direct blood, brother and sister, different rights completely.
Based on their name.
Based on the name they were given at birth.
So it's like, I'm John, I get to do this.
What second name? So like family name. So there's one of 4 family names they could take. And
I got you.
It comes from,
that makes sense.
You know, one generation back.
Yeah.
So it's and it could be quite confusing, you know, because
so you might get your mother's last name or your father's last name,
mother's maiden last name, or your stepmother's maiden name.
It can be pretty confusing because with my understanding of it, and when Captain was talking to me, what I heard was that he married his sister, and I just said roll tide, you know. But turns out he didn't marry. He did not marry his sister.
But
that's pretty good.
You know, so it
he didn't know what that meant, but
we do.
Yeah.
And one thing I think is be interesting to talk about, and we kind of hit it on in the lobby, like, okay, so I weigh 220 pounds, okay, and I'm average size male. Crocodile can weigh 10 times so 2,000.
So
a 2,000 pound animal.
Yeah, real big, healthy crocodile, 2,000 pounds.
And how does that
compare
to? So a big alligator that I've seen around here is like 200 pounds, 250 pounds, 300 pounds.
They get bigger
than that, but no, you're right.
There is a couple of key differences to the crocodile and the alligator. Crocodile's mouth hinges upwards, and an alligator hinges downwards. So that makes it a lot more versatile in attacking it. Alligator can't swing back and hit you because its jaw opens that way, so the head goes that way. The jaw can't get you, and they're a lot less aggressive, obviously, as well.
Oh yeah,
crocodiles look like big docile things. They'll float past you 10 times, and the day they know they can get you, they'll move like lightning. Mm-hmm. And you know, I've had interactions with them. I've had one kill my hunting dog. We heard it happen. We knew what had happened, and it was in a piece of water, no wider than this here. And the creek bank was probably that high, and it sort of eroded. And it was nighttime. It was late at night, and the dogs had gone through the creek. We're running up and down the creek trying to get across. And I know the area too. We knew there's a big croc there. And we heard the dogs give up on the pig, and they were coming back. And we heard a yelp and a gurgle. And we found the dogs in the torchlight on the creek, and me and my mate, and we're pretty hardened sort of veterans at this sort of thing. We run down the bank, like just stepped off the bank really, and we were waist deep in water. And he's got a little stick like this. And I grabbed the other two dogs, and I had them up there, and they're like trying to pull away, and they're freaking out. We could see the third dog, and she was just under the water. Like I had the torch here, the dog's here up to my waist. He was like right where Zach is. He's trying to reach her with a little stick, like a little thick log like that. And then she took her last breath, and he went to jump on her, and then out of the murky water, this head would have been that big and had barnacles of moss on it. And it was the most eeriest thing I've ever seen. I looked into its eyes, and you could see there was no emotion. There was nothing. It was a killing machine. And it just looked at us like, what the are you doing here?
Yeah, and your
I
dog.
should have waited on y'all to come down in here. Yeah.
Yeah, but your dog is in his belly, right?
It's in his mouth. So my mate's like, "Wah!" and he hits it as hard as he can. And the crocodile's right at the tip of their nose, at every sense in their body. So it's highly sensitive. And he smashed it with that log, and the croc went, whoa. Knocked us both over with its tail, and the dog sort of floated down, hung up on some trees. We got the hell out of the water, obviously. We're all wet, and like we're sort of rattled and that, but we're like, shit, we got to do something. We walk up and down, we find a little crankbait lure, and we rip up all our clothes. We're being mauled by mosquitoes, and there's more pigs come past, the dogs are going crazy, and trying to control all that. And we know if we left, we knew if we left that area, the dog would be gone, like never recover. She had a collar, and she was my dog, and like you don't leave someone in the field.
Right, that's
you know what I mean? No one's left behind. We cut up our shirts, and we're just being mauled by mosquitoes, and you cannot imagine mosquitoes until you've been out there in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? With no shirt on. Yeah. And we cut our shirts up, we tied these two sticks together, and we were trying to hook her. Finally, we hooked her, and we pulled her across, and she's sitting there, and we're like, all right, smash the water with the sticks. And we grabbed her, and I mean, she was an 80-pound dog, but she was full of water at this point, so she felt like 200 pounds, and I just grabbed her and like hoisted her up with all my strength, put her on my shoulders, and we carried her, 4 or 5 kilometers, 3 or 4 miles out to the car, and we buried her up at camp there. So,
no, I'm sorry.
So yeah, it was a big deal that night. I tell you.
We're real connected to our dogs.
I am.
It was the 8th of August in 2007. I remember the date.
You know what? I mean, we love dogs. That's incredible. But the most incredible thing that jumped out at me, you had a crankbait.
We found one in like a tree. We were looking for something. Well, looking for a stick or something, and there was like a crankbait hung up on a piece of like grass or something like that someone had been snagged and lost it. And we found that. We just tied that to the end of the stick, and it worked.
Talking about hooks, a lot of people, especially in Louisiana, will use hooks and rope or twine to catch a alligator. That's not a thing.
Crocodiles are protected species, and
you can't set a hook for them.
You cannot. You need to the way that you can harvest them, if you're indeed allowed to harvest them, which is very, very regulated. And certain people can do it. It's only up to a certain size. Any bigger, you got to go call in Parks and Wildlife, and that's like a problem animal type deal. Yeah, so there's no like commercial or tag, so to speak, for us to go and do it. If you've got property and you've got a problem animal, we can remove it. And if there's a couple of guys who've got speed grade skin collection licenses, and then we also catch for the farm. We catch females and put them in the farm, so they'll breed eggs in the farm. And we kill all the males we catch.
So that's what he's getting an airboat for, is collecting crocodile eggs. But the other way they do it is with helicopters, and they dangle somebody on a line to pick them up. So that's something you could do, Bobby.
And it's not.
And then you get leather, and you can sell it.
There's a huge industry in the French. They've got a huge presence in Darwin with Hermes and Louis Vuitton. I mean, they invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the croc farms. They own basically most of them in the territory, and a bag will sell for $25,000.
Wow.
And, a bloke like me is not even allowed to walk in the shop in LA. You know what I mean? Like I was walking out, that's that brand that buys all our eggs and all that sort of thing. And it's like, yeah, they took one look at me and like
kicked you out.
Moving. And I was like, I get all that leather. There's a 5-year waiting list on those bags. They start at $25,000.
Yeah,
man.
You get one for Shannon, man.
Oh, whoa! Now hold up just a second.
So can the indigenous people there, can they hunt anytime they want to, whatever they want?
There's
to
no
hunt?
restrictions, you know, especially in inland land.
Yeah.
You know, they've done some things and people have tested it. The law itself, and this is what I've looked into wanting to do crocodile hunts, because if the law says they own the animals, then we can buy the animals from them, sort of thing, and do crocodile hunts supervised through them. Now, the government have said, put forward a proposal, we'll look at it, right? Because they believe in it, but it gets stopped at a federal level. And the federal levels stop because the Irwins are generating 5 times, you know, hundreds of times more money than hunting ever will. And they've got a voice with the media. So every time it comes up, they'll jump up and down and say, no, we got to do this, we got to do this. And their management policy is let them be. You know, we nearly wiped them out in the 70s. Let them be, they'll be fine. And it's not true. We've got so many, you know, it takes 30 years for a crocodile to grow from an egg into, you know, 14 feet. It takes 35 years. So when they stopped hunting in the 70s, I mean, it's just a bit past that now. So we've got a bunch of big males coming through, and all the area, they're territorial. So all the lands all the waterways are taken. So these crocodiles are turning up in Timor and these little islands and, you know, all over the place. And all of a sudden there's a huge spike in crocodile attacks over there, but nobody talks about that.
Right.
Because it's a third world country. We don't want to know. You know, it's not our problem. So there's a management plan in place, but it doesn't include hunting. But we do collect 40 odd thousand eggs from the wild every year.
When you collect the eggs, they're pliable and like leather?
Like a turtle egg. So they're like a soft egg, and we have to keep them up the same way they come out of the nest. And the temperature of the nest dictates the
sex of
the
the
sex
critter.
of the species.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so what they want to do is breed males. So when they put them in the incubator,
They drop it down.
They'll set it to be a male, because the males obviously grow faster. The faster they can produce the skins, the more skins they can produce, and so on
Science
and so forth.
Science is applied. Yeah.
It's interesting, preservation versus conservation.
Carl,
2 different things.
you tell a good story. That story about your dog.
Yeah,
you put a lot of you tell a good story.
I mean, I was there, and there's no.
Yeah, it was burning your brain for
Yeah,
sure.
man, like that light I lost. It was my best dog, and she was like, I had her for 7 years, and all the puppies I had under her, and I was hunting, and like I used to make when I first started out hunting, the DVDs. I made DVDs and sold them to the local market, hunting DVDs with dogs.
Carl, what's a DVD?
That's how Bobby started out. That's exactly how Bobby started out.
I want you to tell us a hunting story. I mean, one of your dangerous. Think about this. Now, take just a second. I'm gonna look over here at Zach for a second.
Yeah.
But think about a good dangerous story. You got a guy, and y'all are sneaking up on a water buffalo, and he did. All of a sudden, there's another one that you didn't say. There's got to be a story like that.
Yeah, where that second shot come in. Tell me about that shot 2.
Well, buffalo tend, and this comes back to what we were talking about before. And the funny thing is, it happened with Zach. So he wanted to bow hunt a buffalo, right? And it's not easy because these things are switched on. They're mean. You put an arrow in them, now they're angry, and they're mean, and they're switched on, and they know where you are.
Yeah.
So it can be done, no problem. But the situation we were in, captains asked the old people, and all of a sudden 2 giant water buffalo. And when I say giant, I'm talking the biggest bull I've seen in the wild. It was 124 inches. It was massive, like it was bigger than. And
That's how wide he was.
it's a combination of measurements.
Okay.
So,
Right.
but this thing's giant. You know, the average bull, everyone wants to shoot a 100-inch bull. You add 20 inches onto it, a couple of feet. Like, you know what I mean? This thing's giant. There's 110 inches standing next to it. And he's like, well, I'm not going to get close to it. I was like, well, follow me. So I grab a stick and I start shaking the stick in front of my face. Got a few leaves on it. He's like, what the are you doing? And I was like, just walking towards the buffalo.
We're in the wide open floodplain. I'm like,
And they're looking straight at us, but I'm shaking it and I'm making like distress calls for the calves.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
But I got to crawl on my backside and move the stick, and I can't. I don't have control of my gun, and like,
He kind of looks like a buffalo though, so it worked out. That was a fact.
well, the 2 of us, baby, yeah. And I was shaking the stick, and I was like, meh, meh, like, and the buffalo like, but I have to put my gun down to move forward every time, and like we're now at 35 feet. I can guarantee you that buffalo could come straight over the top of me long before I could pick that gun up and shoot it, let alone 2 buffalo.
35 feet,
Yeah.
not yards. 35
sorry, yards.
yards. Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
And yeah, so all that's going on, and I was like, all right, you shoot that one, I'll shoot this one. I shot the big one, obviously.
We abandoned we abandoned the bow by that point, and I think what was first I noticed that he was very excited, so it must be something special. But the other part was it's extremely rare for two big mature
Never
buffalo
happens.
to be together.
Never
Yeah.
happens.
So because of that, Captain, he doesn't believe anything's a coincidence. He said that's happening for a reason. So it was almost like a gift being given to us that we had to take advantage of. So he gave me a rifle and he had his 500, and I shot the small one.
Small 110-inch bull, like, giant,
Yeah.
giant 2,000-pound animal. He gets one or two into that one. I let him shoot first. I get one into mine. It turns, runs towards me. Because what do you want me to do? I was like, start shooting.
Yeah.
And like,
Hurry.
and we got on video. This thing's coming towards us, and bang! I hit it again. He hits it again. I hit it again, and it just turns its head, and then it breaks a right hand turn it from here to the wall away.
Mm.
And that's 375 caliber.
He was shooting 375. I was shooting 500 Nitro Express. So I was shooting a
50
570 grain
50K. Oh, wow.
bullet, and like I think I shot 10 times that day, and my shoulder was cactus that night.
I bet.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Problem too is hearing protection on that. I learned
Huh?
I had forgot my
Yeah.
tetras, and also
It was cactus.
when there's dangerous things happening, you want to be able to hear. But then he starts shooting a 500 next to you, and I can't hear anymore. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Are there snakes down there that when you're crawling through this
yeah.
grass?
And that's everybody's question, right? Everybody's seen Discovery Channel, and they think this place is riddled with snakes, and it's not. Well, no, there was a bunch of snakes down there, and we used to see king browns and those nasty ones that will kill you, all the time. But we introduced the toad in the 70s to try and deal with the cane beetle. We brought it in from South America.
And now they eat the
Let it
toads.
go. They eat the toads, but the toads have got a toxin on the back of their neck.
Right.
And you'll find the snake, well, for a long time, we found a lot of snakes dead, a lot of lizards dead, a lot of carnivorous marsupials dead, a lot of birds dead, and there'd be a dead toad next to them. But now there's millions of toads, and there's the odd snake. Man, we used to see, if you go out on the side by side, because on the floodplains when they dry out, they're a big black clay floodplain, and they crack. And then the rats would live in the cracks, and you'd see snakes everywhere. Now you're lucky to see a couple a night, like pythons.
Hmm.
You know
you
what I
still
mean?
see them, and the problem with me and you being there is we don't know the snakes. So every snake I saw was very deadly, even if it wasn't. And we were tracking a bentang, and one came out of the bushes with his head up and chased me, and I thought it was a pretty big deal. I ran from him, and he just kind of like rolled his eyes and kept walking because it was not poisonous. But to me,
It
that was
was
a black mamba.
Yeah.
It was toxic, not poisonous, but it couldn't bite because it's got the fangs at the back of his mouth. So he was all right. I mean, he was carrying on like a
But they have some big pythons there too.
huge.
Hmm.
I'd jump out and catch them.
So I've read a pretty good bit about Australia, and I read a story one time about some of these rivers can swell up so fast, and these guys evidently riding motorcycles or
Quad bikes.
is real popular along the sand dunes and stuff. And this guy, two guys, they stopped and were just gonna maybe take a little swim right on the edge of an area, and the river was up, and one of them washed.
Oh, okay, so I know these guys, right? So I actually do know these guys. Brett Mann. There was three of them, and it was Sean, Brett, and one other chap. And they were riding their quad bikes around in the mud up near the top of the Finniss River there near Blackpool Yards, I believe. And they'd finished up for the day, and the water. So the rivers are so high, yeah, and they break the banks. But when they break the banks, it takes a whole lot more rain to keep coming up, because now instead of filling a river that's a couple hundred yards wide, you got to fill the whole flat. So when it does happen, which is not that common, the water come up over the top, and there's a sheet of water, say that deep, for 100 yards from the edge of the bank. So you can see where the current line is, but you can't exactly see where the edge of the bank is. And the bank is sort of straight down.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 30, 40 feet. So they're on the edge of the running water, in the deepest part they could get to without going in the river, they thought, to wash the mud and stuff off their quad bikes for the day. And anyway, Brett was like probably the biggest one out of all, but he couldn't swim. And he stepped off the bank and went in the water. And the two other blokes jumped in, and the crocs are known to be in that river, but they're not common in that river. But anyway, they all jump in. They're trying to swim over to him, but the water's flowing fast, mind you. Like
Yeah, 'cause it's a bunch of water.
pushing down, you know. And they went past a big crocodile on the bank. And they all looked at it, and the crocodile looked at them. It come in the water,
Oh,
and all three of them went for a tree in the middle of the water. And they went for a tree in the middle of the water, grabbed the tree. Two of them come up, and Brett was gone. And then all night, all afternoon, and all night, that croc taunted him with the body. Like he'd bring it up underneath the bottom of the tree.
Oh my!
And then I believe Sean had to get out of the tree he was in because it was swaying like this. He had to get out of that one into the other one. And this croc was at their feet all night. And then during the night, they heard him eat it. Like they heard it. Like it was terrifying, crunching up the bones. And that was like, 10, 15 feet below him. And this croc just hunted him all night. And then next day, helicopters come out searching, and they found the quad bikes, and they found him in the tree, and they pulled him out. And then they never recovered the Brett's body. And they went out there with a team, like the police, the tactical unit, and that they saw a big crocodile, put a shot into it, but never confirmed it being killed. And I understand that it was caught and killed a year later by friends of the family. Is the understanding, but that's not.
That's exactly the story I was thinking of. So,
Yeah. Wow.
but when I read it, the story of those guys in that tree that whole night,
With the croc up on them with their buddy.
Yeah, it was harrowing.
Oh, and they would have been getting mauled by mosquitoes, and they would have just been wired because the events that had transpired before, and like it would have been terrifying. Like they would have been messed up. Like I know the boys, and he was one of them. I know one of them, and he does a bit of the mechanic work on my bike. He's got a workshop there in Darwin. Does a bit of work on my not my bike, my boats. He's got a outboard mechanic business, and imagine what that would do to your head for the rest of your life. Sure. Yeah. Just like me with the croc there with the dog, like that was the closest thing to me was my dog, and it wasn't even my mate. If it grabbed my mate as well, like, and then when
it's like it was taunting them.
It was something. It was.
It was like something did go bad on that trip. You talked about the Aboriginal people, and it's like this is a blessing to us, and this showed up because, nothing went bad. But in that case, it went horribly horrific.
And they're like if an Aboriginal person had been there, they would have looked at things that happened previously in the day and pointed to that as a sign of why this happened. Maybe they went somewhere they shouldn't have, or they crossed some sacred land, or they interfered with some sort of rock, or they just it'd be something like that, and that'd be the reason why that happened.
Things go bad quick.
Wow. Y'all eat a lot of blooming onions down there?
First time I had a blooming onion was in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, me.
First time I heard of a blooming onion was in Reno.
About as much as they drink Foster's.
Yeah. Do y'all watch that movie Crocodile Dundee?
I love it. So if you look at that movie, where Linda Kozlowski was in the G-string, and
of course, Bobby remembers that part. Yeah,
I'm not sure I remember that.
That's less than a mile from my house.
Oh,
where that
wow!
Crocodile grabbed the thing.
Yeah,
it's on one of the billabongs just down the road, and we ride the quad bike down there, and we catch fish for the fish in my tank and stuff like that. So it's so it's intertwined. But then the pub, that Walkabout pub, is 1,000 miles away. It's up on the Queensland border. So it was filmed all around. But a couple of the other movies, Rogue and Blackwater, they were filmed locally, and they were on Swim Creek with the buffalo. The buffalo were filmed on Swim Creek in Crocodile Dundee, and that's an area that we do hunt on. So
his local pub has a pet crocodile outside, and on the wall in the place they have a chainsaw hanging on the wall because some guy was cutting limbs over the tank, and the croc stole his chainsaw from him and ate it. So if you subscribe to the newspaper in Darwin, you would have read that story. So
interesting.
But yeah, there's some dangerous stuff there. And in my experience, the women are the most dangerous. But meanest at least.
So Carl, take just a minute and sell us on coming down there and going hunting with you. Tell me give us the bet. We've heard the scary stuff. Now tell us.
This stuff don't happen all the time. You know what I mean? Like the biggest positive about Australia, and this goes for Americans, because there's not a lot of countries you can go, be safe, number one, speak the language, number two, and people actually enjoy the American company. So they'll be like, where's your accent from? We're in the US, because to Australians, the US is one big place.
Right.
Just like you guys down here, you've got all the different states. I mean, over there, we've got all the different states too. And you probably look at Australia as one big state, and they'll be like, where?
Right.
So they'll find every interaction you have with, even at a cafe or anything like that, everyone will be so enthusiastic about your story and they want
Yeah.
to hear your voice, so they'll keep you talking, and and everyone's friendly and it's just safe and there's no corruption, on a level that would affect. I mean, I'm sure there is corruption, but there's nothing on a level that'll affect your
Yeah.
holiday. You know what I mean? And you can't get yourself into trouble in Australia unless you go looking for it.
Right.
It's not like you can take the wrong street in Atlanta and end up like sweating. You know what I mean? Like, get me out of here, sort of thing. It doesn't really happen down there because it is a big country, and it's nice and safe. Our winter is your summer, right? But our winter is probably warmer than your summer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time to visit too.
So you guys, we're going into spring. We're looking forward to spring. Y'all are going into fall.
Well, where I'm from, there's only 2 seasons, wet and dry. It's hot and wet, it's hot and dry. But, but the humidity drops off. It's a whole lot more comfortable June, July, August where I am than it is at this time of year. I mean, I'll get up at 4 a.m. to try and beat the heat to work on, the Polarises, pull the wheel bearings and all that out. And by 6 a.m., my fingers will be waterlogged. I'll be squeaking and slipping around in my Crocs. I'd be dropping tools because I'd be too wet. Every time I lean forward, the glasses will steam up and fill up with sweat. I mean, it's putrid.
Yeah, we're trying to be positive about
This
Australia.
is what I'm talking about, the summer well, your summer, our winter months.
Bobby's never going to the Northern Territory.
Yeah, he's just gonna go in the winter for sure.
So yeah, and it's just a beautiful country.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere.
So
you
a guy can come down there and stay 10 days and expect to kill what?
Bentang.
Buffalo, Bantang. We look after areas so well, and some of the buffalo areas we have is on 3 million acres of private property, and the same family's been managing that for trophy quality since '94. So you can imagine that we don't shoot the first bull that we see every time we go out. We'll pass up big bulls that are with the herd. We'll pass up big bulls that are young, and we shoot only lone dagger boys, and that makes a huge difference to the quality of your animals. And that's the thing. If you don't have a lot of area and you have to take everything that you see, that has a huge impact on your animal. You shoot, it's like with your whitetail 8-point buck. Oh, look, it's an 8-point. And you only get 6 points around it. You blow that away, that thing will never breed, and that genetic line will be gone. So you have to have that discipline to do that. And the areas where we have been, it's been very good. So they've got the right genetic traits and great animals. And, it's a big country, so it takes time to get around it. And you'll see good animals every day. And it's a
pretty unique experience, too, because he's doing camps out in the bush in the middle
That's
of
what
nowhere.
I was going to ask.
And he'll have running water from a pump, and he'll have nice beds and air conditioning. So it's still rustic. You're in the middle of nowhere, but it's comfortable. And to me, it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. And when we went to Arnhem, we went in and we were sleeping in swags, which is what they use for tents. So no light pollution. The stars are like something you've never seen.
Yeah,
and
but the sky's big there.
culturally, it was just a
no one.
experience.
It's like the only thing you could compare it to is like Alaska, where there's no one around for hundreds of kilometers. I mean, it brings its own problems, but now with Starlink and that, you're not separated, you're quite safe. But the idea that no one is anywhere near you and there's no pollution, you won't see another vehicle. You know what I mean? You're lucky to see. But the funny thing is, it doesn't matter where you go, you'll see signs of life from the 70s and 60s, and you can only imagine what it was like. We go 5 hours into the bush, and we're already 5 hours to the camp. You have about 4 to 5 hours down this track. You come to this waterfall, and there's an old tin mine there with a big old school bus, and it was back in the 70s. Like, can you imagine? Like, I'm 10 hours in on good roads, so can you imagine what it took to get a school bus in there back then?
Wow.
You know what I mean? There's like all the old things and nostalgia. It's pretty cool.
I mean, when we were there, we found all the old Aboriginal paintings on the rocks and stuff. So they've been in there for a while.
So you got base camp, then y'all go set up camps and
we just went to somewhere new with them, but we've got established camps and areas. We got long-term leases. We got permanent camps, and we've been well established there for a long. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and the camps have been established for at least 10 or 15. Yeah. So it and like I said, we just started out. I did the DVDs to make a little bit of money, so I could do less work and make DVDs. That turned into a good thing. I mean, back then it cost me a couple of bucks to print a DVD, and I worked out. I did all the got on the computer, worked out how to edit, film, how to ingest the footage, and man, it's a process, and I did all that, and I made a whole series of these dog DVDs, and my dogs were famous. Like, people would beep, and I had a girlfriend over there from the US. She's like, everyone's beeping at me, because she was walking my dog. I was like, they're not beeping at you, they're beeping at the dog. She's like, No, they were beeping at me. I was like, all right. And then the next day, someone yelled, Tanner. And she's like, God, he was right.
So one more question on back to the hunting. Is it more spot and stalk kind of?
Spot and stalk, absolutely.
Yeah,
you know, Bantang and buffalo, a little bit different. Buffalo are very territorial in that area. They will only be pushed out if they're shot at or they're hunted out by another bull. That means another bull will be there. So as you hunt through the year, you'll see bulls in different areas, and it'll be waterways and that. They might have a 5 square mile area that they live in. So you'll sort of go to there, look for signs of the buffalo, track off the water, or you'll look for the buffalo itself. Wait till it gets warm, sort of hunt the tracks sort of follow the water in the general direction. So, and then the Bantang are much more switched on. They are. You can't go near them with a gas buggy. So, you know, if you drive a gas buggy around, there'll be thousands of Bantang there, but you just see dust everywhere. So you get on an electric buggy, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can't walk, we'll still get you on one. If you can walk, it's even better.
Yeah.
So we sort of spot at a distance, move in, make a decision, move out, move back in, or keep walking, you know. So
The Bantang, do they have different colorations? Like the buffalo obviously are all black or a version of black, and these cattle will have pretty like red and white. And
that's true. So the buffalo actually do have. There's 4 colors of buffaloes: albino, piebald, ginger, and black. Right, but it's not that noticeable. I've shot an albino one that would look black and didn't know it was albino. Bantang themselves, there's sexual dimorphism between the male and female. So when a male becomes of breeding age, they will turn a different color as they become sexually mature, and they'll either go black, chocolate brown, orangey grey face, or a reddy color. So, and that's just a genetic trait within the animal itself. It doesn't dictate anything else. But you know, black's probably the most predominant, black and white, and then followed by chocolate, then followed by grey face, then followed by the red.
And then not going back to the size thing so much, but tell me the size difference between a big bull on
looks
both.
Bigger than a buffalo, but it's smaller. It's got like a bodybuilder's body. It's pure muscle, but it's got thinner skin and thinner bones. It's quite elegant in the way it moves. It's very muscular. It's got thin skin, so you can see all the serrations. Buffalo's big, heavy, massive feet like that. Like you'll trip over in their footsteps in the mud.
And they're quite a bit bigger than a Cape buffalo, aren't they?
Yeah, about 30%, depending on the area. They could be up over 2,200 pounds.
So you shoot one, it runs off. You're using the dogs to track it now?
You try not to lose sight of it because they're tough animals. So
what we do is laying there and waiting for you to come in, and then if you ain't got the wind right, you're going to get hammered by this 2,000-pound monster.
Simple rule: shoot till the animal's laying down. You keep shooting, and then you approach with caution. You approach from behind, you never approach from in front. And the hardest buffalo to track are the dead ones. So if you think it's dead, and I've had one drop, lay down, legs in the air, thought it was dead, high-fiving. 2 seconds later, that thing jumped up and was gone so fast. That thing nearly killed us.
Should have been putting more holes in it.
It sounded like landing on a turkey.
Now hold up there, Miss Master.
Yeah. So
look at him skipping on. Don't want to talk about that, do you?
So speaking of turkeys, I was looking at this brush turkey. Do you guide those?
We do not, but they do live in the rainforest around where we are. They build a big mound, and they're pretty cool.
Do they gobble?
They do not. They squawk, and they're quite noisy and annoying, especially when you get them in the garden.
Yeah.
But
they're very far from the wild turkey. But there is an island off of South Australia that does have turkeys. I found that.
There's also one.
Yeah, that would be New Zealand.
Yeah, Toxie. I've been to New Zealand before, yeah.
There's one Australian right off the coast.
So how far from home are you? 18 hours, 20 hours?
Yeah,
from here, from DFW, it's about, because you're flying into the wind going back that way, I think it's it used to be the longest commercial flight in the world, which was 15 and a half hours.
Oh my goodness.
And then it's a 4-hour, like obviously layover, and then a 4-hour hop up to where we are. Still got to get to DFW, but it's a long way.
So you can get a direct flight from Dallas?
You get a direct flight from Dallas, from Houston, from to Sydney or Brisbane.
That 15 hours. It reminds me of Cuz saying, just fill this thing on up.
You have a couple cocktails and about 8 hours in, and the rest is a breeze.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, I can't imagine. I've just got one question. That's mine. All right, so you're an outfitter. You're used to people showing up like Zach. He's got money sticking out of every pocket, and you take him hunting.
Yeah.
What do you look for in a good client? How should a good client behave?
Well,
Where do I rank on that scale?
I can already play didgeridoo.
Look, you know, good hunting ethics is the biggest thing. The only people I've really come to heads with is people that don't care about the animal.
Mm.
You know, I've had
Great
guys
statement.
wound an animal and they're like, just leave it. We'll just
Oh,
get
I
another
can't stand
one.
that.
And it's, if you want to boil my blood, do that. Or if you get someone who wants to shoot a pig with his bow, but he doesn't want to finish it off with an extra arrow. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah, well, they're $20 each. I was like, well, you shot it. You should have done a better job. You know
You're
what I
in
mean?
Australia.
You flew to Australia,
Shoot it.
bro.
That's it.
Shoot
20
it.
in the lid.
And it happens more than you think. And like, that's the one thing that if you really want to
Yeah.
boil my blood, and I've nearly come to blows with, not blows, but I've nearly like kicked some guys out of the camp, very high profile guys that, you know, are well known because they wounded an animal and they didn't want me to finish it off, and they didn't have, you know what I mean, whether
Yeah.
they, you know, didn't have arrows or didn't have bullets left or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not about you. It's not about your ego. It's not about anything like that. It's about an clean ethical death for the animal first and foremost.
First and foremost.
And
right.
then after that, then we can, you know.
So they're trying to do
High
one
five.
shot.
we can fix the story, yeah.
They're trying to do one shot, one kill kind of thing. Or?
Well, they'll shoot, and then, you know, the animal will be wounded, but it won't be running away. But, you know, you won't be getting in under 40 or 50 yards. Yeah, but, you know, they may shoot again a couple of times and empty the quiver, and, you know, not everything, or, you know, or that they may be out of bullets. Or
Grab a shotgun.
You know, I've given my gun, but I've given my gun away one time, and the guy put a bullet in the ground in front of the animal, bullet off to the side of the animal. I grabbed the client, give me the gun. I grabbed the client, pushed him behind a tree. This bull comes in and hit the tree, and then it's like, where are you? It, like, didn't know what was going on, so I pushed the client around, finally get the gun off the other bloke who was a guide from another country. I won't say where, but you can work it out. I opened the gun, trying to keep this big guy, like a guy bigger than me, in behind the tree. This bandhag smashed the sticks. Guy's got a jam in his gun, finally clears it. I got 2 bullets in. I'm about to come around the tree this way. And he just, at like 2 yards, just leans out around the tree, bang, hits it like at point blank with a .458. And we got it all on video. I'll show you guys after this. You'll be shocked.
I want to see that.
It was had a lot of those 3D things
Yeah.
hanging in a tree behind us.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
Yeah, it was, and then luckily we had the video because the other guide was telling me how he did this and he did that, and it was all my fault. And right, I didn't have a gun, mind you. And the biggest mistake I made was giving my gun to that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Could have got us all killed.
Wow. Well, Carl Goodhand, is that really your name, Goodhand, or
is.
is that some kind of name you gave yourself?
Absolutely not. It was my father's name and handed down to me. So
What does that entitle you to with a name like Goodhand? Did you
good
get-
hand. I fought professionally for a long time. So
Hey, there we
it's
go.
possible.
Good fight name.
That is a
Yeah,
great fight.
It
man.
was a good fight name.
Yeah.
So how can guys look you up? Is it outbackexperiences.com?
It's goodhandoutbackexperience.com.au, but most of the time you put good hand in and get past the poker stuff, you'll find me.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I typed in. Good hand. You came right on up at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
And on Instagram, you're GOE78.
that's me.
What does that mean?
Good Hand Outback Experience. 78 was the year I was born.
Boom.
Okay. Well, I see what GOE means now. I didn't.
That's probably also the password he uses for his bank or something.
Yeah.
Well, we've enjoyed having you.
Yeah,
it's
thanks
been
for
a great
stopping
day.
by. Yeah, that's
Yeah, no
great.
worries.
Good stuff.
Yeah. You've been the best bloke that sat on that couch in a long time.
And who would have thought you'd have had a didgeridoo well?
Yeah.
That's it, you know?
Yeah,
So
we're
is
going to
Ken,
close it out.
Yeah, is
with
Ken
it.
going to close us with some
Yeah,
didgeridoo?
Ken is going to prepare the whatever that thing is. Ken.
Prepare the didge.
So, well, hang on now, just hang on.
Well, we ain't ready yet. Hold on, no. we're not
Zach,
ready yet.
you went and you would bless this experience. If somebody's interested in going to Australia, you would bless it.
Absolutely. I've been 3 times with Carl now. The first time I went, I was with another group of people, and I did not know Carl, but it didn't take long to figure out we had mutual friends. And I asked him I said, I heard you're a buffalo guide. He said, the best.
There we go.
All right. He's humble too. And I've been hunting with him twice since then, and it was both times were an incredible experience. And in fact, we're going to go back, I think I hate to go in April, but we might go in April or
Ooh.
June. I know
You must
that's
have
tough.
had fun if you're going in
I know,
April.
That's
Really?
a tough one, but
Yeah.
but if not, we'll go in June. So
There you go.
Does Mary enjoy it?
yeah, I think for her, she grew up in New South Wales, and the Northern Territory for her, that's like the true outback. So I think she had a great time experiencing it. And after our last trip buffalo hunting, we wound up finding out she was pregnant. So
Oh,
That's-
congratulations.
There's a story behind
yeah.
that too.
Yeah, so our daughter now has a skin name. Yeah, Molly can hunt anywhere on Arnhem now.
He was telling Captain they wanted to have a baby, and Captain blessed through there's an area down there which is lady dreaming, which is, you know, not for men. It's called Yalk Yalk dreaming, which means mermaid dreaming. So it's a body of water. Men cannot go in it, otherwise the mermaids will pull you back down. And we went right by that, and he blessed it. I thought it was captain's for a long time, but luckily after it was bought,
I was a little nervous.
That's great.
Oh, man. All right. Well, this has been fun. Mac, you got anything else to add? I'm looking over Atlanta. I don't think you do either. Why don't you hit it, Ken?
You ready?
Here we go.
Ready.
Can you go a little louder than that?
I can go. Over.
Are you getting wet, Bobby? Live from West Point.
That's it. We're out.
Yeah, get us out of here.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.